Welcome back. And so as we start off, the designation of Nigeria as a country of particular concern and subsequent proposed military intervention has continued to gain international attention. Just yesterday, the AU chair was speaking in New York, and he says the complexity in northern Nigeria goes beyond what can be termed a genocide. He says there is no genocide in Nigeria. But of course, from the very beginning, we have stayed with this particular subject. We've had security experts weighing on it. Yesterday, the Christian community was here, and they doubled down on the position that indeed Christians are targeted. There is a genocide. Of course, with the other, Christian guests speaking to how Christians are targeted, but acknowledged also that there are killings of Muslims in Nigeria's north. So let's speak with the Muslim community this morning on the program. And joining us is the national president of Miyetti Allah Cattle Breeders Association of Nigeria, MACBAN, Mr. Baba Uthman Ingel-Zarma. We also have joining us virtually Mr. Salis Abdulsalam, who is the founder, Displaced Women and Children Foundation, who joins us virtually from Jos, Plateau State. But Mr. Ingel-Zarma is right there in our Abuja studio. Good morning, gentlemen, and thank you for joining us on the program.
Good morning, Paula, and thank you for having me.
Let me start with Mr. Ingel-Zarma. There's been many reactions, shades of reactions to this particular subject matter, with many on different sides of the divide, either acknowledging that indeed Christians and Muslims are being killed, but others saying that Christians are being targeted. Where are you on this, particularly the official position of your association, which has been at the center of this time and again?
Good morning, everybody, and thank you for having me. To start with, we have to know that the Nigerian crisis has a deep historical roots, including ethnicity, religion, and much later the emergence of farmer-herder conflict that had metamorphosed into cattle rustling, kidnapping, and banditry that we see today. The situation in Nigeria is complex, and it is essential to consider the multiple perspectives while talking on these issues, to consider the multiple perspectives when evaluating the crisis in the country, and the question of whether there is a Christian genocide or not. Yes, there are reports and allegations on violence and persecution against Christians in Nigeria within the context of the ongoing crisis that is taking place in the country. But you see, in my own view, I don't see it as a Christian genocide. Because the crisis differ from place to place, depending on where it is taking place. I have a lot of examples to give you. First of all, let me start with Taraba in the Middle Belt, because the Middle Belt is where we have, in the north, is where we have a larger Christian dominance. In some of the states of the Middle Belt, states like Taraba, Plateau, and Benue. Let's start with Taraba. There was a crisis that took place in 2017 in Taraba, up there at Sardauna local government in the Mambila Mountains, when over 720 pastoralists were killed in just 2 days. Who was responsible for that? Is the entire tribes in Mambila against the pastoralists, who are mainly the Fulanis. There was a farmer-herder conflict there, so the entire tribes, comprising Muslims and Christians, went after the pastoralists and killed over 720 of them. That is in Plateau State. Coming down to Gasol, where it is a predominantly Muslim local government area, there are a lot of killings of pastoralists. In fact, between the bandits as Muslims and the pastoralists as also Muslims. So when you consider these things, you realize that it's not a Christian genocide. Coming to Benue, for example, if you consider the crisis in Benue, it started for a very long time. The farmer-herder conflict has been there. We have been managing it. up till 2014 when it started escalating to a serious situation. And even during autumn's time, when he was trying to promulgate the anti-open grazing law, I was there with him, was my national president then. We were there at the implementation of that law because we thought it's a law that will bring harmony in the state. We were there when the law was implemented, but even after that, we told him that you have to have an implementation strategy for the law to be implemented effectively. But that was not done. That was what escalated the situation in Benue. But because Benue is a predominantly Christian state, about 95% of the Benue population are Christians. So normally when there is a crisis like this, those who are in the majority will definitely suffer more than those that are in the minority. So there are killings on both sides, but there are more killings on Christian side than what it is of what was obtained in the Muslim side, that is Benue State. Coming to Plateau, you realize that Plateau has a long history of religious conflict. Far when even this Palmer Hada started, Plateau and Southern Kaduna has a long history of religious conflicts. But after the religious conflicts, the fight went into the forest. The indigenous started to go after the pastoralists. Ever since, they have been killing pastoralists under the guise of the settlers that are not interested in the state. So the issue of Benue is settler indigent syndrome that is taking place in Benue, in Plateau. It's not a religious conflict. There was a religious conflict in those years, but much later it became farmer harder. Then it became going after all those that are not indigenous, that are considered to be non-indigenous. Even if you are there before the major tribes that are there, you are considered a non-indigenous. That was the reason why we saw a bus carrying people from Abu's area who were coming into Mongo for a wedding. They were all waylaid and killed and assassinated. And the entire bus was killed. So you see, the situation in Plateau is not a Christian Muslim issue per se, because if you consider what is going on, what has took place in Plateau, where even travelers are being killed while passing through Plateau, we have a lot of such cases that happened in Plateau State. Before the coming of this governor, he is from Mongo. Mongo has never had any conflict throughout the time of Jang, throughout the time of Lalong. Mongo has never had any conflict. The Muslims and the Christians were staying peacefully there. But immediately when this current governor became the governor of the state, Mongo then started to go after the strangers who are in Mongo local government. That was what made Mongo what it is today, a center of conflict. But before the coming of this governor, it has never been a center of conflict. So if you see the situation in Plateau, it's more of settler indigenous issue. Leaving this aside, if you say it is a Christian genocide, take Borno for example, where we have a ratio of maybe 70-30 or 60-40 Muslims versus Christians. The Muslims are in the majority. The Boko Haram that took place in Borno State over the years resulted in killing of so many Muslims, more than the Christians. About 80% or 90% of those killed in Borno are all Muslims. But what was highlighted is the issue of Chibok girls. Chibok is a local government that is dominantly Christians. So you see, and coming to Depchi issue, if you see what took place in the Depchi schoolgirls that were taken away by the Boko Haram, you realize 90% of those that were taken by Boko Haram are Muslim children, not Christian children. So it's never, I consider it not to be a genocide against Christians. If you insist on calling it a genocide, then let it be a genocide against humanity in Nigeria, including both Christians and Muslims. Coming to areas like Zamfara, Katsina, Sokoto, this is a predominant Muslim communities. The conflict that took place between Katsina and Zamfara today, the number of deaths and casualties that are recorded in Zamfara and Katsina today are more than the entire number of deaths and casualties that are recorded in the Middle Belt. I'm telling you, in just these two states, the number of deaths that are recorded there is twice the number of deaths that are recorded in the whole of the Middle Belt. Wow. And this is a predominantly Christian, it's a Muslim community. Muslim versus Muslims. Muslims as farmers and Muslims as bandits, killing the same Muslims. So, as far as I'm concerned, I see this crisis as a resource-based crisis. I don't even look at it as an ethnic tension. I look at it more as a resource-based crisis that is being exacerbated by the population outburst, that is being exacerbated by the climate change and poverty and so many other things. So this is my view, as far as I'm concerned, is far away from a Christian genocide. Right. If you insist on putting it as a genocide, it will be best be called as genocide against humanity, including both Christians and Muslims.
All right. So many things to unpack from what you have said, so many things to follow up on. But just to add that on the last bit of your assertion that those who have been killed in the Northwest alone are more than the entire killings that have taken place in other parts, being Muslims, we would have to subject that to data. But how important that will be is another kettle of fish entirely, because what is more important is the fact that anyone is being killed in the first place. Let's go to Mr. Salis now. Mr. Salis, I'd like you to respond to the same question, but you are in the, you are reported to have worked a lot in Borno State, to be precise. And Mr. Ngazarma has also spoken to what is happening in the north. Help us put in proper context what you make of this subject, and with reference to what is exactly happening in Borno State.
Oh, well, good morning, Nigeria. Thank you for having me. If I'm very audible, I would like to also correct the impression that I have worked more in Borno State. Yes, I was born and brought up in Jos, Plateau State, and I am 61. I have been involved actively in peace building in the last 23 years. So I have a very knowledgeable position of what happens around Plateau State, more than I do about on Borno State. Borno State, yes, I have gone there for interventions, and what my colleague discussant has mentioned about Borno State is the way it is. Number one, Boko Haram is a nomenclature. The Nigerian government, state governments, and the media are responsible for the escalation of a lot of this crisis. Now, why do I say that? The media created the name, made the name Boko Haram popular. They have their Arabic name. So now, because they say Boko Haram, in Hausa it means Western education is a sin, Boko Haram, and everybody is stuck with it. So automatically, when they say Western education, the narrative there is, where did it emanate from? Emanated from the missionaries, emanated from the Western world, where Islamic practice is limited. So they now give it this impression, this narrative that it is, Islam against Western education. So these are some of the narrative being pushed by the media, when they say Islamic jihadist. It's derogatory. Jihad on its own has a meaning. So who created the name IPWIS, IPWIS? Who created the name ISIS? So the media is responsible for some of this, pushing some of this narrative and making it popular, and then forcing it on the throats of people, to make it look real. So coming back to happenstances, we must be able to know. For instance, I asked the question, when you say Middle Belt, what is the geography? You find that the first president or the first leader of Middle Belt is the Group Captain Dan Suleiman from Adamawa State. What makes it middle? So Middle Belt, a lot of people see it as, a belt around the northern Christians. And we keep pushing some of these narratives. Our fear as peace practitioners is the position of religion becoming stronger than the state, where you have a sitting president being asked to squat, a whole president of Nigeria being asked to squat before a religious leader just to get endorsement. We're giving religion too much prominence in the country. That is why when Donald Trump said there is Christian genocide, what happens to the mind of Muslims is America is coming to fight against anybody that is not a Christian. How do you expect Muslims to feel? If America is coming to help us deal with criminals, because you have them you have Muslim criminals, you have Christian criminals. So where Plateau State is concerned, there are 3 dangerous R's, very dangerous: revenge, retaliation, and reprisal. Government policy has made those three R's, to permanent those 3 R's. The media has made permanented those 3 R's. Now, the example he gave about Mongu, this is now going to be based on happenstance. Though facts might not be law, but this is based on happenstance. He mentioned Mongu, for instance. The moment there is any problem between a herder and the local indigene, every Muslim around that environment pays the price. Now you will see international donors, high-powered military delegation, the first lady of the country will visit to empathize with the victims. She will be received in an IDP camp by a pastor. Now, the state government will not ask, where are the Muslims that also suffered the same losses and damages? The same human and material losses. There was a time that such Muslims were camped in Tafawa Balewa in Bauchi State. Nobody talks about them. So that kind of pain does not encourage healing. When you hear a state executive say it is genocide, so these kind of narratives have been pushed. The media is not investigative. They won't ask. Now, in the whole of this, what happens to the Muslim casualty? These are the kinds of things that actually brings about reprisal. These are the kind of things that does not permit forgiveness. And these are the kind of things that does not make healing possible. So when there is a reprisal, it is celebrated. But when there is anything happening to a non-Christian, because the typical Muslim attitude is they believe when somebody dies, his time has come. That is what God has, or the time God has ordained. Then they just bury the dead body and forget about it. It is not celebrated. And the corpses are not kept to prepare for media engagement. The corpses are not kept for any ceremony. The burials happen instantly. And then the international community and Nigeria does not really know these kinds of casualties, take place. So these are some of the narratives we need to correct.
Okay, if
we must grow above our sentiment.
Okay.
For us to be able to proffer, neutral solutions.
Okay, sir. If I may come in, can you hear me? I like the point you raised, which is why we brought both of you here, so that we can hear the other side. and balance the conversation. I think we were with Bishop Wale yesterday, who had highlighted a few things and has also admitted to the fact that even Muslims are killed in this whole process. I think at this point, everybody has come to the realization that we have a big crisis on our hands, whether it's Muslims or Christians that are being killed. Now, perhaps from the Christian angle is the fact that the perpetrators are coming from what they call the Muslim extremists, whether it's Boko Haram or ISWAP or the definition you gave. The media's job is quite simple. We see facts, we report. That you can't blame us for our work. Whoever is driving an agenda, that is their own kettle of fish. We see the facts, we report. We're not going to say somebody died when nobody died. So if nothing is reported, that's why they said unreported. We use those terms, unreported. So sometimes it is believed that when 10 die, it's actually 20. So, but we can only report what is available. But we're not here to debate agenda or no agenda. What we're here to deal with is to solve a problem on our hand and to make us recognize that we have a problem. Christians are being killed. Muslims are being killed. Now, where I'm going to with my question, and I'm staying with you for a moment, is the fact that perhaps the Christians are saying two things are happening. One, extremists, Islamic extremists are the ones pushing this and killing us and even killing their own people. So that's why they are maybe looking at it as a genocide. On the other hand, there's issue of killing, clearing, and grabbing land. Now, Donald Trump has said it's Christian genocide, is coming to attack the terrorists. So my question is, going forward right now, is it the problem of the Muslim community not reporting their own casualty, or they are being ignored? And how can we resolve this problem to solve this problem once and for all, so that our people, whether Muslim, Christian, or those who don't even have any faith, are not killed? I stay with you, sir.
Okay, now we need to get this very clear. And then when we live in denial, for instance, almost every ethnic group, I said almost with modesty, almost every ethnic group has a militia. And we don't want to accept it. When anything happens to any ethnic stock, you will see the militia in action. So right from our cultural groups, we have to address that aspect. They might be called warriors of that tribe. They might be called the youth wing of that tribe, but it is a growing concern. That's number one. Number two, we have the issue of juvenile miscreants in the north. And a lot of them provide the pool from the Almajiri practice where bandits recruit. We cannot deal with this situation just based on palliatives. No. We cannot deal with this situation of the Almajiri based on palliatives. No. We must find a way of reforming that practice and abolishing certain parts of that practice. We're talking solutions here now, you know, and then we must be able to look at any crisis view it with a neutral lens. We know that the media will report what it sees, but the media also has the responsibility to ask questions. We can see these ethnic groups here. What happens to the other ethnic groups that also stay here? So we're looking at solutions here now. Now, for headers, those that are involved, the Fulani race must rise in unison to curb criminality amongst their tribes. Because the Fulani as a race is an endangered species today. Some of us cannot clearly. It will interest you to know that there are certain places I go to carry out interventions on the plateau. My name will change to Silas. Because if I reach there as Salis Muhammad Abdul Salam, there's a possibility I will not come back. Despite the fact that I'm going to provide, humanitarian services. It is that bad. there was a particular time in Jos especially where even accidents, road accidents had a religion. You hear somebody who say, don't mind them, it's one Muslim man that knocked this boy down. Don't mind them, it's one army that, even accident, road accident, we will not examine the traffic law. No. First is the religion. So these aspects need to be corrected if we have to move forward. All right. We cannot continue to judge everything, especially in the North, based on religion.
All right. Mr. Salis, we've stayed with you for a bit. We understand your scrutiny or you calling out the media, and there's nothing wrong with that, but we just must put it also in proper perspective. The media does not manufacture names for groups. For instance, there's a newer sect in Nigeria's northwest, which is Lakurawa. The media didn't manufacture the name. We go out to get reports, and it is the report that we get that we put out there. Is there a need for more investigation? Indeed, yes, there is a need for more investigation. But that's why we're having this conversation, to expand the horizon and to find out what exactly is happening. And this has been very constructive. Let me come to you, Mr. Ngezarma. You have had to say quite a lot about the complex nature of this, and you've tagged it more a competition of resources, not even ethnic, and definitely not religious. But I'd like you to speak to the expanding nature of the conflict, if indeed it is economic, because beyond Nigeria's north, we've seen over the years, particularly under the last administration, farmer-herder crisis in the south, in which many killings were also recorded. And more often than not, herders attacked the aggressor in this. I'd like you to speak to this on the one hand, and the acknowledgement, even in some Muslim quarters, that there is an extremism context of this particular subject matter. I'd like you to address those two aspects of the conversation.
Well, before I answer your question, I need to speak a little about what my other speaker said on the role of the media. I will challenge the media, and to agree with what he has said, I will challenge you people, more especially the channels television. Let's go to Plateau. A lot of crises took place in Plateau. Tell me how many times did you try to balance up those reportage that you took from Plateau State? Most of the times, the reportage in Plateau State are lopsided. They always report the Christian side without minding about what happens to the pastoralists or the Muslim sides. So the entire reportage of Channels TV in particular in Plateau State is all lopsided. Check your clips, go back to your clips and see how many times did you try to find out what had happened to the other side. And the ethics demands that you balance up before you go to the public. But most of the times, the public only hears one single narrative. So most of what is taking place about this genocide and so many things about this crisis, it is the issue of single narrative that is going out. Even what went to international community is the single narrative. It's always a single narrative because the media, as far as I'm concerned, some of the media are not doing their work as it is required by law, as it is required by ethics. This is one. The issue of farmer had an issue of resource base. Definitely the root causes of this crisis are resource based. The population is increasing and it will continue to increase against a land that doesn't increase. And the pastoralists who are practicing the primitive system of animal husbandry, roaming the wild looking for free pasture, because of the growing population, this one cannot be sustained. No more. Because the population will continue to increase against a land that doesn't increase. So these are part of the problems, and with challenges of climate change and poverty and so many other things, that was what exacerbated the conflict further. But I also agree there are some aspects of ethnic conflicts in some places, because the coincidence is always that the pastoralists being totally all 90% cattle ownership belonging to the Fulanis, belonging to the same tribe, and to some extent belonging to the same religion. So that is the reason why most of the times when this crisis happen, in places where it is, in communities where it is a Christian-dominated community, you can colorate it in whatever color you like. You can call it religions, you can call it ethnicity, because the coincidence is all the pastoralists are Fulanis and they all belong to the Islamic religion. So when there is a conflict between them and a particular community that is Christian-dominated, you can give it whatever coloration you like. But what remains the fact is a resource-based crisis. The Fulanis moving to find shelter, to find grass and water for their hearts as the only option for them to survive. We have never encouraged crisis because we are not criminals. We have never represented any criminality in this country because we are not criminals. We always represent peace building. We always represent understanding between the farmers and the herders. That is the reason why we have had series of engagements with a lot of interfaith people. We have had interfaith engagements with religious groups. We have even had interface with the CAN as the overall religious body in the country. We have had a lot of engagements with so many international bodies, Mercy Corps, Interfaith Mediation Center, Search for Common Ground, Center for Humanitarian Development. You said itself, we have had so many engagements in our effort to mitigate peace, to mitigate the conflict in our efforts for peace building in this country. So this issue of genocide is far away from a genocide as far as I'm concerned. It's a crisis that is affecting each and every part of the society. To me, it can be termed as a sheer criminality that is taking place, because even the insurgents, the Lakurawas who are just coming in, they go to communities, kill people, loot, and go away with their things. So we see it as a sheer, sort of sheer criminality, more of than a Christian genocide in this country.
All right. It's a good thing that we've had this conversation. We all need to come to the negotiating table. In fact, we can look at the edition of the program yesterday where we spoke with the Christian community and this one, and see how we can solve this problem. But Channels Television has a proven track record of commitment to upholding the ethics of the profession. And this segment is evidence of that fact. Yesterday we spoke with the Christian community. Today we're speaking with the Muslim community. During one round of killings in Plateau State, I recall that we also spoke with the Fulani community via a phone conversation. That is documented. We can go back and look at some of our reports. There is evidence that we also speak to the other side in our reports. But we must thank you very much, gentlemen, for coming on the program. I really do wish we had more time to explore and exploit this, but there'll be other opportunities in the future. We've been speaking with Mr. Baba Othman Ingel-Zarma, National President of MACBAN, who joined us from our Abuja studio, and Mr. Salis Abdusalam, founder, Displaced Women and Children Foundation. Gentlemen, thank you so much for coming through on this segment.
Well, thank you very much. We hope there will be longer opportunities moving forward so that we can profile solutions, being on the field, that can correct this narrative and then take us back to where we were, living together.
All right. Thank you very much. And that exactly is the objective.